Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
This is the 7220sports.com kickoff show presented by Dickey's Barbecue Pit, located at 2410 Grand Avenue in Laramie and in the Frontier Mall on Del Range in Cheyenne. The 7220sports.com kickoff show is also sponsored by Wyo Lotto, Papa Murphy's Pizza, Warren's Repair and Towing, and Rocky Mountain Shirtworks. I'm Cody Tucker, joined as always by Jared Newland. The Wyoming Cowboys taking on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors tonight in Honolulu in that 9,000-seat little makeshift stadium they have there on campus. Kickoff. Be there, be square, snort a line of sugar if you want. Kickoff is at 10 p.m. Jared, how we doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Good. Not snorting sugar yet. I'm fine staying up till, 2 in the morning, whatever it's going to take. Well, for me, it'll be more like 6 in the morning, but that's
you
cool.
And I are going to be coming off watching a World Series game.
That
and
too.
One of us is going to be in a low, and the other one's going to be in a high already. So
the Cowboys better fix one of us.
Yep. And for you listeners out there that don't know, Cody is a Phillies fan, and I am an Astros fan. So we are talking to one another just because we're doing this show. But other than that, it's off.
And isn't it crazy? You told me, 2 weeks ago, you're like, wouldn't that be unbelievable if these two met in the World Series? And I'm thinking, unbelievable in what way?
It'll be fun, though.
I spent 2 years in Houston, so I have a lot of friends on Facebook and a lot of friends down there that are big Astros fans. And I don't know if you saw on Facebook, I saw last night Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, of course, took a picture wearing a Phillies hat. He is from Houston. I used to cover him when he was at Channelview High School, and I'm sure he's getting a ration of stuff from back home wearing that Phillies hat. But he's doing the right thing by his home crowd right now. They would not be happy.
Yeah, I think a lot of times those stars of major teams in those markets, they do that for fan support and stuff like that. But it's good, but I'm guessing deep down inside maybe he still is an Astros fan, or maybe he never was an Astros fan. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Houston's so huge. I don't know. And when I lived there, we talked about it. Houston was so bad. I mean, it's so incredibly bad that it's just so weird to me to think how incredibly dominant they've been in the American League for what they've been to the World Series 4 times in the last 6 years. Or the ALCS.
Yeah. And 6 straight ALCSs.
That's unbelievable, man. What a job, too, because, isn't the narrative that the American League's so much better than the National League, too? And Houston was a middle-of-the-road National League team in that horrendous – I'm sure you don't miss this because I don't miss watching these games at all. The NL Central is unwatchable baseball, in my opinion. Matt, our coworker, would disagree. He's a huge Cubs fan, but Cubs, Cardinals, Brewers, Pirates, count me out on all of that.
I think during the regular season, a lot of baseball is unwatchable, to be honest with you. But come postseason, man, I am glued to every pitch. It's fun. So
you saying that you're spoiled is what that means.
Have been, yes.
Yeah, I have not been spoiled in a long time, so I am enjoying this. Not running my mouth at all. A lot of fake Braves fans I would have loved to give the business to, but I'm gonna wait. And if they pull this off, they're all going to hear from me.
Yeah. Well, back to the matter at hand. How about them Cowboys?
Yeah. Jared, what if I told you that 8 weeks in, 9 weeks, whatever it is, Cowboys would be 5-3 overall and 3-1 in Mountain West Conference play?
I probably would have said 4-4 at best and probably 2-2 in the league.
Yeah. I can't help but keep pointing this out, and I know I brought this up before. That Tulsa game was gigantic. To be able to pull that off in double overtime, they don't win that game. You're talking about a potential, 1-4 start maybe beating Northern Colorado?
Yeah, it just gave them that much, confidence that they could do what they did against Tulsa, coming back from 2 scores, fourth quarter, winning in overtime, and doing it the way they did with some long passes, some big plays, put it that way, which this team isn't made for big plays, but they were that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, just for their confidence and to start the season off the way that they did, 2-2 in the non-conference, which probably at the beginning of the season, that's what we all expected, but we didn't know that Tulsa game was going to be as crazy as it actually was.
Yeah.
But, BYU was good at the time. They're a little banged up now, but Wyoming did give them a heck of a game.
They did.
And really was there until the end. And we've all seen what Illinois is. Nobody knew that going into the season, but they're dang good.
Illinois might just find themselves in the Big Ten championship game this year and probably get absolutely mauled by Ohio State or Michigan. But good for them. I think they've arrived ahead of schedule, just like the Cowboys have, and really happy for Bart Miller, who I got to know when he was the offensive line coach at Wyoming. They've done a really good job, him and Brett Bielema. That's a really good football team, really physical team. Talked to Jay Savell, Wyoming's defensive coordinator, this week, and he said that is one of the most physical teams that he has ever seen in his entire career. And remember, this is a guy who coached at Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
He saw
He's been
Illinois.
in the Big Ten.
Yeah, he saw Illinois a lot. So, Cowboys, Rainbow Warriors, 10 p.m. tonight. These two battle it out for the Paniolo Trophy. Weird, but awesome. Really read up on that a little bit more this week. The cowboy culture over there is real, and I know you've been over there, and they do have a cowboy culture, and they have some ties to Wyoming. And after the win in '97, the Cowboys flew home, and nobody has a clue what happened to the original trophy, but that Paniolo group in Hawaii got a new one and got it going again.
I heard a gentleman from the athletics department on a radio show earlier this week, and he made a comment about he believes it's in somebody's house.
I could see that.
So when it came home, it disappeared, is the story, I guess.
And I wonder if it's innocent in the way that somebody said, hey, we're in the Mountain West now, Hawaii's not, we're never going to play them again, so put it in your mansion, put it in your log cabin in Cody or Jackson.
Yeah, who knows? But that's weird that it did make it back to Laramie, apparently. And I honestly thought, because there was a bunch of stuff going on because the RAC was being built, the Rochelle Athletic Center,
mm-hmm.
and there was a trophy case up in the field house, and then a lot of those trophies got moved over to the Rochelle Center. And I thought maybe it got lost in that transition somewhere.
That's a pretty big trophy to grow legs.
But apparently it was lost before that.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a cool trophy. I asked Craig Bull if they're going to have to reserve a seat on the plane, which, of course, he didn't like that question at all. But you're going to reserve a seat on the plane to bring that bad boy home. And, obviously, Craig Bull. We got to win it first, and Craig is not. He is 0 for 2 on the island, so a couple of very frustrating losses to this team. They are so frustrating to play on the islands. He mentioned it numerous times in his press conference this week. What makes them so good at home? Just home cooking?
Well, many of the years they were so physical on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, they had those big Samoans that played physical football. I mean, you see it, BYU and Utah get a lot of those players from the islands, and they're just physical and big, and they're good.
Yeah.
And then you parlay that with their spread offense that Cordero did run for a while, and their new head coach Timmy Chang ran. I mean,
ran to the tune of 17,000 passing yards.
I mean, June Jones had that going over there for a while,
did.
And he hindsight, he should have just stayed there.
Yeah.
And built maybe a little Boise State.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Oh, they were right neck and neck with Boise State
there. He
there.
goes to SMU and tries to run it there, and he did successful for a while, but then it just fell apart.
Yeah, and Colt Brennan, and man, they've had some dudes over there on the island that I was looking up Timmy Chang's numbers earlier, and 117 touchdown passes, 17,000 passing yards. I mean, it's hard to even comprehend. 17,000 passing yards is the second most in the history of FBS football. It's mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. If you think about some of the best Cowboy quarterbacks and the numbers they've put up, you're talking, 6,000 passing yards maybe for Brett Smith?
Yep.
And Josh Walwork in just a couple of years?
Yeah,
5,000 zone? Yeah.
But, yeah, and it is the jet lag.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, it happens. I mean, you fly more than 4 hours. Sometimes you fly 4 hours, you're tired.
Yep.
But you go over there, and plus you got the palm trees, you got the weather, looking out the window of your hotel and like, oh, I wish I could go down to the beach. Those kind of things. So it all plays a factor. And plus, I mean, it's a late start for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be 10 o'clock on their clock.
Yeah.
What they're used to. So that's why they did leave on Thursday.
Yep.
To get acclimated. Sometimes they don't do that, but this year the budget allowed it.
And they're going to stay a day. They're actually not going to hop on a plane right after that game at 2 in the morning or whatever. Well, there it's going to be 11, 12 o'clock at night.
So they'll leave sometime on Sunday, come home, and it's a long travel day on the way home, of course. But it's one of those things that I think Craig always says it's a business trip. We all know that.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's the way it's going to turn out for the Cowboys this time, having that extra day to acclimate and to really let it sink in that said, yeah, we get to look around, we get to see some stuff, but we have a game to play, and we need this game. And if there is ever a must-win on the Cowboys' schedule, you might say it multiple times throughout a season, this is definitely a must-win for the Cowboys. You got to keep the momentum going, and you have to have a win going into your off week before the border war.
Absolutely.
And to become bowl eligible, 6-3, 4-1 in the conference. At this stage of the season for the Wyoming Cowboys, it's the third youngest team in the country. That is huge.
You couldn't have said it any better, Jared. For sure it is huge. And speaking of the youngest team in the country, Hawaii is the youngest team in the country. They lost 19 players to the transfer portal. I thought it was even worse than that. If you read all that stuff, Todd Graham did not have anything good going last year. And somehow, some way, they still came into War Memorial Stadium and routed the Cowboys 38-14 in the season finale.
Well, it was so bad his own kid transferred.
It was bad. We'll talk about more of Hawaii on the other side of the break. Let's get to the Cowboys' latest win. They take down Utah State 28-14. The stats would suggest this was an absolute beatdown, and in a lot of ways it was. The score just didn't indicate how badly outplayed Utah State was in this game. You know, you got to give him a little bit of a mulligan here. Bishop Davenport was making his first career start. He's a true freshman. He was just at his prom, 5-6 months ago. That kid's got a ton of promise, in my opinion. He's got a really good arm, really live arm. He's athletic. He was 17 of 26 for 104 yards and a pick. The pick was really bad, but I thought that was probably one of his worst throws of the game. Calvin Tyler Jr., their running back, nice day for him. 15 carries, 83 yards. He had a 31-yard touchdown run. Ton of receivers like we knew they would. Brian Cobbs, 5 catches, 45 yards. But the Cowboys were more than impressive in this one. And I knew, and I talked about it on the show last week, after talking to Titus Swin, he had a different look in his eye. He had a different just aura about him where he just oozed I'm going to kill these guys.
And we both predicted that he was going to have a big game.
I want to say, I didn't go through and listen, but I want to say I even said 160 yards.
I know I did.
Yeah. 28 carries, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. He got the scoring started with a 30-yard touchdown run. Also put the punctuation point on this thing with a 2-point conversion there at the end. The thing I don't think any one of us saw coming necessarily was DQ James. 10 carries, 120 yards, 12-yard average for the Lancaster, Texas product. Redshirt freshman. DeWine McNeely did not play in this one. I think that they're still not comfortable with his right hand and the nerve damage he has and the cast he is forced to wear. So DQ got his shot. They said during the bye week they were going to recalibrate some things. I asked Craig Bull first question in his press conference, did recalibrating include DQ James? And to a degree, yeah. I also asked Tim Polasek that same question, and he kind of got heated with me and said, it's whoever we got. Our running back room has been beat to hell this year. And they have. Joey Brash, high ankle sprain, Titus, bruised ribs, and all he's gone through. The hand with McNeely, hamstring with DQ James. They're starting to get healthy at the right time. And if they can do that, Cowboys racked up 330 yards on the ground. And, oh, by the way, Hawaii is the worst team in the Mountain West when it comes to rushing defense, giving up more than 200 a game. It's a scary proposition.
124th nationally.
Yeah, that's a scary proposition.
And the Pokes held the ball for 35 minutes too.
Yeah.
And that's what Craig Bull wants to do. He always wants to win the battle of the time of possession.
Definitely.
And they did that by 10 minutes this last weekend. And, I'm just looking at the penalties too. 5 for 25 for Wyoming, 1 for 10 for Utah State. A very clean game. And a couple of those were just false starts.
Well, and what was weird about that is Wyoming had a false start 3 times on first down.
Yep.
And Utah State was the most penalized team in the Mountain West. They have 1 for 10. But it was clean.
They did jump on a third down on the defensive side of the ball one time too, but luckily it was 3rd and 12 to make it 3rd and 7.
Yeah.
But the interception that
Davenport
threw, I rewatched the game. I don't think he ever saw Eckler drop back in coverage because Eckler was showing blitz. And about a second before the snap, he starts coming back. and he's just floating out there. And the ball floated, too.
It sure did, yeah.
And the receiver gave up on it.
Yeah.
He could have played defense and went and batted that ball down, but he didn't.
Yeah, and
So-
if that was on a rope, too, he had a beat.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It could have been different.
And then on the other side of the ball,
Yeah.
we saw Peasley. He was only 50%, and some of those he threw away on purpose, which were good plays.
Yeah.
We always talk about those being positive plays. But he threw one right into the DB's hands that would have been a pick six.
Yeah.
And that game would have been totally different.
Yeah.
We're talking third quarter, late third quarter. This game would have been just had a different feel to it going into that fourth quarter.
Well, and on the flip side, too, Jared, if Wyatt Whelan doesn't fumble that punt and give Utah State prime real estate, really the Cowboys got gashed on one defensive possession the entire game. Other than that, if they didn't have that mistake, this might have looked a lot different the other way.
Exactly right. And that's, you can dissect so many different plays of what would have and could have happened.
Yeah.
But those are two big ones for sure.
Well, and of course, the storyline coming into this one, Andrew Peasley facing his former team. He's 13 of 26 for 199 yards. He did not throw a touchdown or an interception. Like you mentioned, thankfully, he didn't throw an interception because that would have been 6 easily. And the other side of the storyline, Levi Williams, the former Wyoming Cowboy quarterback, he did not play in this one. I had heard all throughout the week he was not going to play, but you have to wonder if you're being slow played a little when, maybe they don't want to hand over the information to Wyoming's beat writer to let everybody know that he wasn't going to play. But I think we knew watching the CSU game, he couldn't put any weight on his right ankle. And I waited by Utah State's tunnel pregame to run into Levi, and he was taped up and wearing his full uniform and came jogging out of the locker room. And I'm like, are you playing? And he gave me the no, I'm not. And he was there on an emergency basis. And I'm sure you heard it. The student section was having a little fun with Levi and his return. I know Levi's family heard it because I talked to Levi and his family after the game. And like always, I enjoyed Levi. I don't know what everybody else thinks about him. I don't really care. But in my dealings with him, he was always honest, which got him in a little bit of hot water at times with his coaches because he was so honest. You'd ask him a question, and he'd say, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. You're going to have to ask somebody else, which we know who that means.
Yep.
And after the game, his family goes, did you hear what the student section was chanting? And I said, yeah, of course. And he said, it's no big deal. He's like, they chanted the same thing at me when I was the quarterback here. That's kind of cat he is.
I only heard, we want Levi.
I heard some other stuff. But it would have been cool to see Levi play in that game. He wanted to. He's a competitor for sure.
Even the television commentators, there in the end, Davenport kept running the ball a few times, and they were like, who is going to come in? Because we know Levi, he's dressed up as an emergency guy, but he's not going to play.
Right.
So who would have come in if Davenport got hurt? Because they were like, why are they going to get him banged up?
Yeah, good question. I don't know who would have came in. I really don't. And Wyoming's defense, let's be real, man, they were humming. 217 yards allowed, 6 sacks. And I don't know about you, Jared, but nothing puts a smile on my face like sacks. And the Cowboys have 25 of those, leading the Mountain West way ahead of Fresno State has 18 of those. And
Fresno State's touted as one of the best defensive lines in the West, along with San Jose State.
Well, and there's a story right now I wrote on 7220sports.com. This defensive end group came in this year with exactly 0 sacks. 0 under their collective belt. Coach Bull, the unofficial MVP of the offseason, was Sebastian Harsh. He has a knee injury right before the opener at Illinois. He never even had a sack in a game. But we're thinking, oh, man, Coach doesn't talk about guys like this, man. This guy must really be humming. Then he gets hurt. The Alabama transfer also has a hip injury in camp. He's hurt. So you're like, what does this leave? Oluwasi Omotosho played a little special teams last year. Devon Harris had really nice games in 2020, his true freshman year when he was forced into action during COVID. He had a really nice game against Boise State, I remember, in the snow in the finale. And Braden Siders, who's, a guy who's easily 20 pounds undersized. And you're thinking, oh, man, they are in deep trouble. They're not. Devon Harris has 7 sacks. He tallied 3 of those against Utah State. Omotosho with 5, Siders with 4. 18 of those 25 sacks have come out of the defensive end position.
Really enjoyed your article this week on speed goggles.
Yeah, Devon Harris. He's an interesting cat, man. And Craig Bohl can do a heck of an impression of this kid. He's a different cat, but man.
Talking about wearing pajamas.
Yeah, tucking him into his socks.
You never know what color they're going to be.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Craig Bohl's changed. He's absolutely changed. There's no doubt about it. And we've talked about this all year, and it's making a hell of a difference, in my opinion. He did joking about stuff like that. I mean, this is not the Craig Bohl I've known since 2019. He does not talk about, single out anybody, especially stuff like that. And here he is sharing a bunch of anecdotes about these guys. He told another great one about a moto show this week, just dropping back in coverage 30 yards on a snap. And he's like, what in the hell are you doing? You're a defensive end. And he said, well, I knew the ball was going to go around the other side, so I wanted to get ahead on my angle. I mean, Craig Bohl's head would explode if you told him this 2 years ago.
Yep, textbook football, fellas.
Yeah. Now he laughs about it, and he goes, he always says, one of his famous lines this year, they don't know what they don't know. And it's the truth, man. The sky was falling after Illinois everywhere but in that locker room.
And I've heard you ask him questions, or ask players questions about a changed Craig Bohl.
Yes.
And they all said, oh, absolutely, you see a difference in him. And I've heard it on other shows, I've heard it other articles, and I've read and stuff like that. To a T, every single player says that he is a changed man.
Absolutely. Every time I interview somebody new on the team, which I try and do on a weekly basis, I ask them that question. And at the end of the year, I thought I'll do a story on this, but everybody has the same answers. Yeah, he has changed. He sits with us in the lunchroom. He asks about my family. This is not stuff I'm hearing from guys that left the program last year.
Well, I was going to say, it all goes back to that article that you wrote last year about what's going on.
Yep.
Why are all these people exiting the program?
Yeah.
And that, to a T, every one of them said, he's a hard guy to play for, doesn't care about you as a person. You only know your position coach. You don't know the head coach.
Yep.
That seems to have changed. Year 9, but it's never too late.
Yeah, no doubt. I love it, man, because what did we have all said this. Guarantee you've heard this 100 times. Will the old dog learn new tricks? He has. And it's been really impressive. And I don't need Craig Bohl to be nice to me. I don't need him to love every question I ask him. I don't need him to kiss my tail, any of that stuff. But he has been a pure joy to be around this year. After they get waxed by Illinois in the opener, he comes behind the podium, and I'm thinking, oh, what a great start. Oh, boy, here we go. Man, he had perspective. He talked about the good things. He knew there was obviously some question marks, but he still felt really good about this team. And you know what? When I left Illinois, too, I still felt good about the team. I just didn't know mentally how bad it would be because they were not 32 points worse than Illinois.
And one last thing that we all hope that he'll change is to allow media to go to practices.
One thing I hope he changes is maybe, and he's starting to, making football relevant in November. It's a really nice change of pace here. That four-game losing streak last year was brutal for everyone. Nobody was having a good time at all. So, whether Wyoming wins or loses is irrelevant to my job, but let's be real, it's more fun to cover a team that's winning, and it's more fun to cover a team that's growing. And I think that's the exciting part. And, of course, it's easy to go, oh, well, how many of these guys are going to transfer? We've talked about it. I've talked about it with Ryan Thorburn in the press box. If we looked at the roster last week and said, can you point out one guy on this roster right now that would transfer? We pointed out a couple. But for the most part, this team is young, they're hungry, and they're a lot of fun. And it's exciting to have relevant football in November.
I don't know if you saw Jeff Saturday, the former center for the Indianapolis Colts. He does a thing on Fox on Sundays, and it's called Sat 'em Down. And he had Zach Watts on there on Titus's last 7-yard touchdown run, and he pointed it out that Zach pancaked this guy, but it started at the 4-yard line, took him into the end zone, out the side of the end zone,
he sure did,
into the sign and they were like, sit him down, sit him down. He even calls him out by name. So shout out to Zach Watts for a pancake.
Absolutely.
And I can't believe that wasn't flagged.
Oh no,
because it was
very
like
aggressive.
Could have easily gave up on it.
Yep, it was Michael Orish. We'll put a bow on the Utah State game. Talk about the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors on the other side of the break.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Welcome back to the 7220sports.com kickoff show presented by Dickey's Barbecue Pit. Stop in or order online at dickeys.com for your tailgating food today. Cody Tucker joined by Jared Newland. As always, what's that pizza deal that we keep talking about?
50% off at Papa Murphy's in Cheyenne and Laramie. It's online orders only, but 50% off your pizza.
I know what I'm having for the game because I'm going to be parked in front of the TV watching baseball. And then also, we did not make the trip to Hawaii, and nobody else did in the media corps as well. It's a lot.
It's just too expensive. And think about the travel budget for any media outlet, let alone small little Wyoming outlets.
Yeah.
And use that money elsewhere now. Bowl game, obviously, most likely coming up. Basketball is going to be really good.
Yep.
Maybe add in a couple games there and there, here and there, and that's a big chunk out of the budget. So
yeah, and it would have been nice, only in the fact that Wyoming has a bye week the following week. So if you actually have the money to go rock it for a week. DJ Johnson, however, our photographer, is there. He just landed last night, so he will have photos from there. Craig Bull will be doing a Zoom press conference after the game. So we will still be talking to him at the crack of probably 3 a.m.
Think about
Sunday morning.
On Saturday, though, 10 a.m. Mountain Time kickoff, and it's going to go through all the way to the end of the Wyoming-Hawaii game for the day. And it's going to be glorious and mixed in with a World Series game, too, in there.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I am not regretting this. I would rather sit on the couch and watch football all day and watch the World Series with my team in it. If my team wasn't in it, I can't say that I would watch every pitch.
It'd be hard to flip over from college football to World Series if your team wasn't in it.
Here's what we need to worry about, though. That game needs to hurry. Because what if the Cowboys game starts and the baseball game isn't over yet?
Well, I have 2 TVs in my basement, so I'm set there.
Honey?
and actually, one is going – the Cowboy game will be on my iPad anyway because I'm not going to simulcast it to the TV. I'm just going to use my iPad and call it good.
Yeah, my buddy Matt and I have been trying to figure out a way to rig this thing up all week to get this game on the TV so we're not watching on a phone or a tablet.
You can Chromecast it or simulcast it.
I have no idea what that means, but I'll have to talk to you about it. Unless you want to tell all the listeners how to do it, because I'm sure a lot of people are struggling with how to even find this thing.
Well, every TV that was purchased within the last probably 5 years has the capability of simulcasting. So if you have the app on your phone or your tablet, there'll be a simulcast option to your TV. So you
have to plug it in?
No. It simulcasts over the air.
Okay, I'm an idiot out there, folks. For anybody out there, don't feel ashamed if you have no idea what simulcasting means, because I don't either.
But if you wanted to have it on your laptop computer, just use an HDMI cable and do it the old-fashioned way and plug it in from your computer to your...
So I can get an app on my laptop?
I would do it off your phone, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yep. Or have Matt do it off his, because your phone's going to be busy.
Yeah, we'll figure something out here. We'll figure something out. Well, let's put a bow on this Utah State game. Andrew Peasley got emotional after the game at the podium. You know, he played it off all week that this game is just another game. We all knew better. He said after the game when all of his buddies came up from Utah State and got in line and told him congratulations and we're really happy for you, including one of the offensive linemen from Utah State who Peasley is going to be his best man in his wedding. He got a little emotional talking about that. He spent 4 years there, and he had to feel really good. I mean, he played a really good game. He was really solid, aside from the mistake you're talking about that was nearly a pick six. Other than that, just smart throws, smart decisions.
Bittersweet is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a lot of friends over there, and I'm sure even the coach, I'm sure they chat throughout the year.
They do, and Blake Anderson said he cried when Peasley entered the transfer portal. And I'm here to tell you, folks, guess who would have been starting for Utah State Saturday night? It would have been Andrew Peasley. Most likely. So, it is bittersweet. He spent a lot of time there. He was in Logan during the bye week. His girlfriend still lives there, so really happy for him. I really like Andrew Peasley. And Craig Bull really, really likes Andrew Peasley, too. And, I hate to bring up this word because I know it makes Wyoming fans cringe, but re-engineered offense. He wasn't talking about airing it out. He wasn't talking about throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. He was talking about exactly what Andrew Peasley is doing right now. Peasley has 1,204 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, which leads the Mountain West, 3 interceptions, 263 yards rushing, 0 lost fumbles. He has turned the ball over 3 times this year. So he's taking care of the football. And for comparison's sake, Sean Chambers started 8 games, the first 8 games of last year, and was benched after the New Mexico game, and he got in sparingly against Hawaii. He threw for 1,125 yards, which is less, 6 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions, was sacked 14 times. I believe Peasley's been sacked 9 times, and 198 yards rushing. He fumbled the ball 7 times and lost 4 of those.
I was going to say, some of those, you say that 0 fumbles and 3 interceptions. There was games last year and the year before that between a Levi or a Sean that they did that in a game.
Yeah.
Let alone in 8 games.
No doubt. So, yeah, I mean, Peasley's not breaking the scoreboard by any means, but he's quietly putting together a really nice year. And instead of re-engineered, maybe Craig Bohl should have just flat out said, we need to be more efficient. We need to not hand the other team gifts. And that's what they were doing way too much last year. That 4-game losing streak we keep talking about from last year, that's what it was. It was a fumble fest. It was a turnover fest. The interceptions were just coming fast and furious. And looking through those numbers today, Sean even fumbled against Ball State. He fumbled against Northern Illinois twice.
In the 2-game stretch where they only scored 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Threw a pick against Montana State. And those are games that they won. So just not taking care of the ball. And that's what's going to get you benched, and it did. And Levi Williams got benched last year for turning the ball over as well. So Andrew Peasley, love him or not, he's been fantastic. I think the Cowboys won. I'm not saying the Williams trade, but I think they won in the transfer portal. You couldn't ask for a better guy right now, and that's not even talking about his intangibles, which they all love him. This team absolutely loves him. Something else that's new this year that the fans wouldn't get to see. Every time I'm interviewing players on Monday afternoon in Laramie, the other players are coming in and out, going to the locker room. They all come by, and no matter who I'm interviewing, they tap them on the shoulder, or they high-five them, or they slap hands, or they say, what's up? Every one of my interviews is interrupted by a, what's up, man? This team genuinely loves each other and cares about each other, and nobody does that more than Andrew Peasley. I can't get through an interview with the guy because everybody keeps stopping him.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw you on Saturday, guys, but that says a lot.
Most likely on Sunday in the training room.
Yeah, true. But it really says a lot. And I'm not saying anything about Sean or anything about Levi. I think the team liked them just fine. I know they really like Sean, but there's something different about Andrew Peasley. And Craig Bohl sees it. I hope you guys are starting to see it because I certainly do, and I know you do.
And, yeah, I mean, there have been 2 games where the completion percentage has been horrendous.
Yep.
But they still played okay, not in the first game, but they played okay in the other one.
Yeah.
And some of those are just plain throwaways that he has to get rid of the ball, too. And I'm going to harp on it every single week. Those are positive plays, in my opinion, because they're not turnovers.
Yep. And guys, he's hamstrung. Coaches are not letting him run wild. So a lot of those throwaways, too, are maybe some times where he could pick up some yards. There's also probably some plays that are definitely been some plays that have been left on the field that he hasn't used his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach learned that the hard way through what Sean Chambers went through and what Tyler Vanderwall went through and what Levi went through. And he's not letting him run, yet he still has 263 very quiet rushing yards, if you think about it, because we thought of Sean as a runner. Sean, at this point last year, had 198 rushing yards. It seemed like Sean had a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, just because he ran the ball that many attempts.
Yeah, attempts.
Real quick on the Utah State game. Second half, Peasley's in the shotgun. You got Brosh on one side, Swen on the other side. I believe moving forward, the Pokes are going to use more formations like that.
Agreed.
To really, and if maybe it's not Brosh, maybe it's DQ, maybe it's McNeely when he comes back healthy, but you're going to really throw off the defense. And plus there was a tight end.
Yeah.
Lined up in the backfield, just off the line. So you have no idea where that ball's going to go. You have 3 running opportunities. Tight end just might flat out go down the seam, or there might be a guy wide open on the sideline.
And Parker Christensen also is a tight end / fullback.
Oh, and there was another play, too, that Driscoll just hammered a guy again on blocking. And we talked about him last week. That's all he cares about. Yeah. He loves to block. That's all he wants to do.
Physicality, man.
He hammered a guy again. So
we would be absolutely remiss in not doing our job whatsoever if we didn't talk about the Cowboys' final drive of the first half. And Craig Bohl thinks that we are making way too big of a deal out of this.
But are we?
No, we're not making a big enough deal out of this. With 19 seconds left and the Cowboys at their own 26-yard line, Ryan Thorburn and I looked at each other and said, might as well go take a leak. They're going to kneel on this thing, right? Nope. 4 plays, 50 yards, John Hoyland field goal. Cowboys get 3 on the board. The players were so excited after the game to talk about that. And I thought it'd be a ho-hum, we do it in practice all the time. No, they were legitimately excited about that, which has to spark Craig Bohl. We might be seeing this more.
And it doesn't – the 2-minute offense doesn't have to be run at the end of a half.
No.
Or at the end of a game. Every once in a while, maybe you just do it to throw the other team off, and maybe they burn a timeout that was like, oh, man, we burned a timeout, and they might need it later in the game or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You just get up the line of scrimmage and go, go, go. And it just throws the defense off, and plus they get gassed. And Utah State was gassed because Wyoming was on the field for a long time that first half.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they had just gone 3 and out to give the ball back to Wyoming. So
I was so impressed by that. I always jot down maybe some ideas for some questions, which by the way, I don't take requests for those of you who keep saying, you need to ask Coach this, you need to ask Coach that.
Oh, there's plenty of people that would give you some, that's for sure.
Oh, they do, yeah. I do not take requests, however, but that is one of the first things I jotted down was I literally didn't even write a question down. I just wrote OMG. Couldn't believe it.
And that sparks your memory of what to ask him about.
And I've asked Craig about the middle 8. I saw it on a graphic against Boise State last year, how good the Broncos are in the middle 8, which, of course, is the final 4 before half and the 4 coming out of half. He blew me off like that was the dumbest question I've ever asked, and I've asked some dumb ones. That was impressive.
They're only dumb because he doesn't want to answer them.
I like to think so too, Jared. But that was impressive, absolutely impressive, and it was imperative. That was a close game, and it really was a shot of life, and they all mentioned that going to the locker room. They were all excited about it, so we were too.
Well, let's just hope we're this giddy and talking about the same thing come next week at this time.
No doubt.
Because Wyoming has a big task to play on the island against the Rainbow Warriors.
No doubt. And, Hawaii, looking up them, their defense is just the first 3 games against Vanderbilt, Western Kentucky, and Michigan. That's no easy task. But 2 of those games were at home, aside from the game at Ann Arbor, and they gave up an average of 56 points per game.
63 to Vandy, the most ever in Vanderbilt history.
And if you've watched college football, you know Vanderbilt isn't exactly known as a juggernaut.
Maybe at that time thought that Vanderbilt maybe had turned the corner and like, oh, they might win a game or 2 in the SEC, might go 5-7, 4-8. No.
Nope.
They're back to old Vanderbilt.
Yep, not a bit. So Hawaii's defense under first-year head coach Timmy Chang absolutely gashed in those first 3. However, their last 3, they're only giving up 16.3 points per game. But that was against San Diego State, that was against Nevada, and that was against Colorado State. And outside of Iowa, those 3 offenses might be the most painful to watch in all of America.
Yes. There's nothing more you can say about it. It is hard to watch all 4 of those teams.
It is bad.
And the only time that, of course, in a couple of weeks, we're going to watch CSU against the stout Wyoming defense. So
yeah. Yep. Hawaii is dead last in the Mountain West in total defense. They give up 34.5 points per game. To put a little perspective, they've given up 35 touchdowns. Wyoming's given up 25. However, Wyoming did have a lot of their pass defense hasn't exactly been lights out, and it's getting better, I must say. And what's helping that, in my opinion, is that unbelievable edge rush they've had of late, 12 sacks in the last 2 games, which has also led to 3 interceptions from the secondary. And don't get it twisted, those things are correlated. But the Cowboys have given up 25 touchdowns, and you got to think about it. They gave up 37 in a win over Tulsa. They gave up big points at Illinois. BYU put up a lot. So San Jose State. And, the teams the Cowboys have lost to are all pretty darn good. When they played BYU, they were ranked number 19 in the country. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. Go Liberty. But, you can't really put lipstick on this pig. The Rainbow Warriors are giving up 435.4 yards per game. 212 of those are on the ground. 124th in the country in that regard. 223 of those are through the air. They are ranked 11th in the Mountain West in pass defense. 0.1 yard ahead of the Wyoming Cowboys, who are in dead last in that category. So Titus Swin has to be licking his chops, right?
Well, I think, he, DQ, and Peasley himself, too, because there might be some openings for Peasley to get, maybe a 50, 60, 70 yards out of the game on the ground. The Pokes defense, pass defense, they have to get off the field. That's all there is to it. They can't give them the cushions because these wide receivers, they're fast. And the quarterback, Shager, is going to get the ball out.
Yep.
And he's thrown for 1,200 yards so far. But you have to, at any opportune time, get off the field, whether it be a 3-and-out, 5-and-out, whatever it may be. Just get off the field and don't let them sustain a 12 to 15 play drive, which it won't take up a lot of time off the clock because they know huddle.
Yep.
But you're still on the field and you're gassed because you can't substitute.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Hawaii's offense hasn't exactly been lighting it up either. They've scored 31 points as their highest output, and that was against Nevada a couple weeks ago in a win. Hawaii is 2-6 overall. Their only wins coming against Duquesne, which is an FCS school out of Pittsburgh. And then their only FBS win against a very young Nevada team that is just not very good. And hard to believe that Nevada team won, 2-3 in a row to start the year? I mean, granted, I've only watched them play Colorado State, but that was absolutely pitiful. I mean, pitiful. So, you brought up Braden Shager, their quarterback. He is out of the Dallas area. He has thrown for 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns, had 6 interceptions to that. He is not a running threat whatsoever. But in those 1,200 yards, he's spreading the ball out. 7 of these guys have double-digit catches to their name, and that's pretty typical when you look at Hawaii stats. They have a tight end who's been heavily involved, and then running back Dedrick Parson, 543 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. So they do have some weapons on offense. They're not exactly terrifying, but they do. And but where Hawaii kind of gets you, right, is those big Polynesian dudes. They're tough, man. I'll never forget Marcus Harris talking to him about the toughest game he ever played in his college career was not Hawaii. It was BYU in that WAC championship game in '96. He said, man, their bone structure is different or something. They hit like a ton of bricks. So that's where the line of scrimmage, they're really good on the line. They're full of all kinds of dudes that, God bless you, Reese Monaco, that you're going to have to pronounce these names because these guys are just big and they're scary and they're really good.
The Pokes have got to get out to a fast start and don't let this Hawaii team believe that they're in the game. That's all there is to it. Wyoming has to come out, punch them in the fat mouth, and score at any time they have the opportunity. And don't settle for field goals.
Yeah.
Get in the end zone, get up by a couple scores, and then Hawaii's going to oh, here we go again.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what's weird, though? That they don't ever have big crowds, no matter what their stadium is, per se. But, man, they get going a little bit, don't they?
The couple games I have listened to, for 9,000 people in that stadium, it's pretty loud.
Yeah.
And maybe it's where the mics are and all that kind of stuff, because there's no way that you can't hear when you're on the field. But it's a unique little setup for a football game, especially a Division I football game. It's something you'd most likely see at Division III level or even lower. But here in a couple of years, they're going to have that new stadium again that they're going to be able to play in, and it'll be 35,000-ish.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll get them going again.
Here's a kind of a difficult question, Jared. Should Hawaii even be in the Mountain West Conference? It's just so damn difficult.
It's tough.
What do they bring? What do they bring to the table that makes them so appealing?
Well, it's obvious they don't bring a TV audience because that's why there's a game on pay-per-view where any of these networks, they only go over there once or twice a year, if that.
And then your best-case scenario, if you're Hawaii, you win 6 games, you get to play at home in a bowl game.
And if you're better than that, you probably have to win 10 games to not play in your own bowl game for travel purposes.
So I just don't understand. And we can talk about the same thing with like a San Jose State. Although San Jose is the third biggest city in California. It's hard to find the benefits. And I like Hawaii, and I like this game. I always have. I love Hawaii's uniforms. I really love their old uniforms with the rainbow on the helmet. I love those. But it just seems so not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on the uniforms too. They're
White helmets.
Back in the day with that. It was green, but it was almost a turquoise green.
Yeah.
And then when the Wyoming would play there, they would play in their all whites on that old turf.
Yep.
It just looked really clean and good.
Yeah.
And Wyoming don't wear all whites anymore,
Of course not.
But the white on the yellow pants still going to look good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of my greatest Hawaii memories was 66-0 in 1996, and watching those guys, every one of their linemen had an oxygen mask on.
And it could have been 100-0.
It sure could have. Josh Walwork and Marcus Harris had a easy afternoon. We have about 3 minutes left, Jared. You want to run down the Mountain West slate?
Yeah, so earlier today, so 5 o'clock Mountain Time, be CSU at Boise State. Boise's a 27-point favorite, and the over-under is only 43.
Wow.
So they're not giving any love to CSU scoring points.
They're 11-0 all-time against the Rams. Remember the Rams, the one where they crapped down their leg at the end in Fort Collins a few years back. Whew.
And then pretty much right before the Pokes and Hawaii kick off, it's San Diego State at Fresno State. Fresno State's an 8.5-point favorite.
That game should have had some juice. But can you think of a game I'd rather watch about any game under the sun than that one?
The only thing is they're both 2-1 in the conference.
Which is insane.
And then Nevada at San Jose State, which the Spartans are 24.5-point favorites.
Wait a minute. San Jose State at where?
Nevada at San Jose State.
Yeah. Oh, Nevada's so bad.
Yep. So
Nevada, even though they're worse than Seattle, they're the worst team in the Mountain West. Nevada's so bad.
You think they're worse than New Mexico?
New Mexico of the first two drives against Wyoming, New Mexico.
Well, and then I want to give a shout out to a couple Casper guys for being our guest pickers this week. Go Natrona County, I guess you can say. One's Kelly Walsh, one's Natrona County. Brett and Jack, appreciate you guys helping us out this week. And there are some other big games around the country too. Penn State hosts Ohio State. And then Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yep.
Has a little bit of juice to it because Tennessee coming off another big win against a down opponent. But Kentucky is good.
Is Tennessee going to crap down their leg too at some point?
They don't look like they're going to, but they might. And then a game you're very familiar with, Michigan State, Michigan.
And it's easy to say Michigan's going to completely roll in that one, but we've seen it before. The Spartans kind of have Jim Harbaugh's number, and I tell you, man, that was one of the greatest games I ever covered was watching Michigan State beat Michigan in the Big House in the pouring rainstorm. It's a really fun game.
Bunch of delays during that game, wasn't it?
No.
Okay.
There was a bunch of tornado warnings around the state of Michigan, though, so a lot of fans on Twitter were unhappy and yelling at me like I created the tornadoes. So really fun atmosphere. People think Michigan, Ohio State all the time. Don't get it wrong. That is a huge one.
And a couple others, Arkansas at Auburn, Rutgers, Minnesota, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati, UCF.
Baylor, Texas Tech. Count me in on that one. All right, guys, this has been the 7220sports.com kickoff show presented by Dickey's Barbecue Pit in Laramie and Cheyenne. This show is also sponsored by Rocky Mountain Shirtworks, Wyo Lotto, Papa Murphy's Pizza, and Warren's Repair and Towing. Thank you for joining us. For Jared Newland, I'm Cody Tucker. Stay tuned for Wyoming football next, right here on KOWB.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.